Good afternoon, and welcome to today's RD Programs 101 Plus event, a special engagement for the Rural Economic Development Innovation Communities, also known as READY communities. Today's agenda includes a welcome address, Rural Development Agency highlights of our READY initiative, a brief overview of rural development programs, our Ask the Panel portion, and after that, we'll wrap things up. We will begin the program now, and to get us started, I'd like to turn it over to Jackie Ponte-Lazaric, Chief Innovation Officer here at USDA Rural Development. Jackie.
Hello and good afternoon. On behalf of USDA Rural Development, and especially all of us from the RD Innovation Center, I want to thank you for joining us today. I trust you will find our event productive and a way for you to gain information to support you and your community. Rural Development is your partner in rural community and economic development. It is our privilege to have administered the READY initiative and have partnered with the READY cooperators and with you. And we want to keep that partnership alive and growing. For those who are not familiar with the Rural Development Innovation Center, or the IC, we are an organization, we're only a few years old, but we're within rural development, and we find ways to make RD programs more accessible and effective by leveraging data, policy development, and partnerships. One of the things that we do is work with internal and external stakeholders and partners to leverage our internal RD expertise and programs. In my work over the last 16 years of running and enhancing programs in rural development, I've spent many hours listening to rural communities, just trying to understand their needs and to connect local leaders, businesses, and residents to the right assistance at the right time. In so many communities, the planning component is often the step that needs to be taken, and sometimes it's the hardest step to take. With our unique and important role at USDA, the IC was ready to innovate in 2018 when we developed and executed the READY program, and we were happy to do so. In 2019, the READY cooperators were selected and awarded funding, and soon after that, READY communities were identified and the technical assistance started with the READY communities to support all of you. I would like to take a minute just to thank the READY cooperators listed here that supported all of the READY communities with technical assistance. You can see them here on the screen, among them the National Association of Counties, Rural Community Action Partnership, McClure Engineering Company, Purdue University Center for Regional Development, and the University of Kentucky's Community Economic Development Initiative of Kentucky. The READY initiative supported rural communities by providing the opportunity to maximize their access to planning resources. And as great as READY is, it is just one tool in our IC toolbox. This slide highlights a few other RDIC initiatives designed to address some unique rural challenges. As we've gotten the opportunity from Congress to develop these, we've tried to bring them to fruition and bring them to you. So I hope you will take a moment and after this session, click on the initiative hot links to check them out and see if they can be helpful to you. If you'd like to keep up with our programs and funding opportunities, you can subscribe to Innovation Matters. This is a premier monthly RD publication. The link to subscribe is found at the bottom of this slide and within the handout section of the webinar platform. It is a very popular publication because each month it gives you a listing of terrific funding opportunities with hyperlinks right to those programs and funding notices. We work hard to be proactive and transparent with you so you don't miss an opportunity to work with us. And that includes sharing our agency priorities. USDA Rural Development is incorporating key Biden-Harris administration priorities into program scoring and associated funding announcements, beginning with our fiscal year 2022 funding announcements. Priority points for COVID-19 impacts, equity, and climate impacts are going to be awarded in key RD programs, some, but not all, programs to support projects that support the key priorities. These priority points will be incorporated into funding announcements, and they'll be published in the Federal Register. And something different this time around, priority points, just for background's sake, are not new to rural development. Many of our programs have scoring constructs, and within that scoring rubric, there are in some programs the ability for a state director at rural development or the administrator to assign discretionary points. We are leveraging those existing discretionary points for these key priorities of COVID, climate, and equity. In the past, those discretionary points have been used for other administration priorities. So we've used them for many, many years under many, many administrations. The difference this time is that our leadership here at Rural Development very much wanted to be transparent. In the past, those priority points were not always publicized. So as an applicant, you might not know where the priority points, how they were being assigned, how the metrics were decided. And so we have developed an external website. You can see that here, Rural Development Key Priorities. You can go directly to the site, or you can get to it straight from the RD homepage through the drop-down where it says, I am looking for, right? There's a nice little drop-down, and you can, and the top selection is RD Key Priorities. And that site will give you information on brief description of how we're defining the priorities, and how you'll know as an applicant or someone working with an applicant whether a community qualifies for priority points. One of the things that you should know is right now we have a list of programs. As each program comes on board, we'll be adding those programs to a program list with links to funding announcements and other program information. Right now we've got 2 up on the site. Others will come as we move into fiscal year 2022. So I'd like to now introduce Christine Sorensen. She is our lead for the READY initiative, and she's also the head of our customer experience team within the Innovation Center. And she will be followed by the RD program section of this presentation. So enjoy, and I will turn it over to Christine. Christine?
Thank you so much, Jackie. I just really appreciate that. And we are just so excited to have you all join us today. We really want to celebrate you and the relationship and our collaboration. And can you believe it's been 3 years? We know that when we set on this journey, it was going to be 2 years. And then we all really did a pivot, right, within the pandemic and what needed to be done next. So today we celebrate you. We're here to really share in some successes, but really to kind of continue this relationship and share further. So we know that each of the community has individual projects and needs. And we also know that you're all supported by whether that's city municipal governments, entities, nonprofits. We know that you and those stakeholders in your communities are our customers. And we really want to use this time to showcase our RD programs. We've got some great presenters coming up, and really want to highlight some of those initiatives that we do have. We want to provide you this information just very briefly. We do have a full hour and a half, but we also want to leave time for questions and any comments, and also leave you with some contacts, because as we know, this is just the start of our relationship. And when you're ready, you've got your implementation plan, that you can make those contacts and really talk to your RD staff that are hopefully part of your team, and the RD staff in the field. So once again, we're so excited to have you. As Jackie highlighted, we truly want to thank also our READY cooperators. They supported the communities in these last 3 years. Definitely a process of whether that was in person and moving to virtual. We just really thank you for all of your hard work that you did, and whether it was organizing or really fostering a plan for the communities, you are commended, and we thank you. May the implementations of the plans really continue. We're here to support, and hopefully, if you remember one thing today, it is that we are your partner, and that we look forward to further collaboration. You know, the heart of this initiative really was around that collaboration, but also the relationship building and the support in the field. And whether that was nationally through our Ready Work group, or it was within the field of our great rural development staff, that we really celebrate that kind of relationship that was built too. I just really want to kind of commend and just say that those Ready Work group members from the Innovation Center that are on, you know, hats off to what a wonderful structured initiative that we implemented. So we celebrate our team as well. All right, you know, one thing when we go on to our successes that I've kind of mentioned, we do have some that we want to highlight. And what we've done is we've highlighted these, you know, by the cooperator. We know that this is just the tip of the iceberg. We know that there's a lot of successes and a lot of great work happening, but we want to celebrate these. Our first is the Purdue University and the University of Kentucky. They worked with the Ready community for Fulton County, Illinois. Now, they developed a strategic plan for economic development and job creation, and it was really around e-connectivity. So Fulton County's dynamic team, they secured a lot of different sources for the community and really worked through actually some great USDA funding examples. One of them was the Rural Business Development Grant, or what we call the RBDG, and it was for like 100,000, and 1.5 million was awarded to Spoon River College from EDA and Economic Development Administration, another great federal partner, to purchase training equipment and job creation and retention, and also in a $3 million State of Illinois Connect Illinois funding award. So just want to celebrate those next steps that happened because of the planning. The Fulton County, Illinois group has been quoted. One of the most important benefits of Ready efforts is that it created a platform for new connections among community members, expanded networks, built local capacity, all while providing critical technical support. So thank you again and congratulations. Now this next one is from our cooperator, McClure Engineering, and they are and did work with the community of Summit County, Colorado. They participated in the Ready process and positioned the Summit County to pursue ideas and projects that may not have been available otherwise. It was really around and focused on the special needs and the challenges. And they partnered with co-starters and really gave an important pivot, as I talked about earlier, when COVID did hit. Because of the resulting facilitation and partnerships, they launched a virtual small business support cohort. And they stood this up, and they also received recognition from the Summit County government and our partner, federal partner, EDA. So hats off to the Summit Prosperity Initiative, and just really appreciate that support. The next success story we want to talk about is from our partners with the National Association of Counties, or NACO, and their partners in crime, the National Association of Regional Councils, or NARC. So NACO and NARC were just wonderful cooperators. They worked in the city of Craig and Moffat County, coal-reliant and coal-impacted region, and they continued to work with them about economic diversification, transition planning, and really provided that technical assistance to do that kind of economic transition plan when it comes to some of those differences in a coal-impacted community. They focused on tourism, culture, recreation. They worked at sectors around agriculture, solar energy, coal to projects technology, and aerospace. They worked on workforce development and just really were great partners with a lot of our community colleges that were in the area. So for our last success story, it really comes from the Cooperator Rural Community Assistance Partnership, or as we know them, RCAP. And they worked with the Southwest Colorado Council of Governments. And this was a community, but a lot of times they worked within their hubs. And so for this community, a USDA Distance Learning and Telemedicine grant was awarded to support the Fort Lewis College. And it really was a great impact for a lot of the areas, especially the 4 counties in Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. They also received a Community Development Initiative grant. Now, you know what? I'm really listing a lot of programs. You do not need to take notes. You've got the handout, and you've got some great presenters that are also going to talk about these programs coming up. But what they did is the RCAP Hub, the Rural Community Assistance Corps, RCAC, received some support for around value chains. And that was for training and technical assistance and for small business and entrepreneurs. So once again, hats off to those successes that I did bring up, but we really do want to celebrate all that's going on right now. One really important part of this initiative was really tracking. If we say we want to do something, how do we track it and really make sure that we are making some of those outcomes and impacts in our communities? And so we did pre and post surveys. Your cooperator provided you surveys, and we really wanted to share some of those post-survey results. Now on your slide, I've got them listed, and it really talks about some of those things that I just wanted to highlight, right? 65% of those that took the survey, extremely beneficial to participate in READY. 80% developed new partnerships. 75% strengthened existing partnerships and collaborations. 60% identified funding opportunities and obtained tools. A single best indicator of how effective your local committee was around collaborating. And 70% were successful in identifying funding opportunities. You know, in some instances, it does get you to these funding, but really we know that the strength that's built is really around that collaboration and relationship building that can happen in a state. So once again, hats off to you, and we're really excited to get to continue this conversation and get to our great presenters. So Jamie, I'm going to hand it off to you, and I know we have a polling question. Thank you, everyone, and just have a great rest of the time.
Thanks, Christine. We do have a polling question for everyone in our audience today. It relates to a little bit about what you know about your community and what the next steps might look like. So please take a moment to interact with this poll. What do you feel is the greatest community or economic development need in your community today? You can select from broadband, healthcare infrastructure, which might be new or improved, growing local small businesses, affordable housing, or something else. And if you select other, please type it in the chat so that we can make sure that we capture that information and it can inform our next steps moving forward. I'm gonna just wait until we get a good majority, and then I will be happy to share the results so that we can see what this group is looking forward to addressing in the near and possibly long-term futures. Looks like our votes are slowing down. I'll give you a couple more seconds to think it over. We really appreciate you taking part in this today. Okay, I'm going to share those results. And it looks like we have a pretty near even split, with 38% stating that affordable housing was the most important. Another 36% is looking at broadband as their greatest need for their community economic development. We also have an additional 19% who are looking to grow local small business. Another 5% are stating that healthcare infrastructure is most important, and 2% selected other. And for those of you who did select other, I encourage you to use your question/chat panel just to type in what you feel is your greatest need for community economic development in your area today. And while, as we move forward from that, I am going to turn the time back over to Jackie, and we can move forward with our presentation. Thank you all so much for participating.
Thank you, Jamie. I'll get my camera back on. So we wanted to share with you a little bit. Oh, well, that's not very helpful to you. Hello again. We wanted to share with you a little bit about our USDA Rural Development Mission area, and we'll do that now. RD is made up of 3 agencies. You see them here on the screen: our Rural Housing Service, our Rural Utility Service, and our Rural Business Cooperative Service. And each of them offers a unique mission to bring prosperity and opportunity to rural America. This is an incredible suite of programs that we have to offer, and very excited that we can do this for rural America. We have more than 50 loan, grant, and technical assistance programs, as well as guarantees to support community and economic development in rural communities. We are a relationship-based agency, and many of our staff work and live in rural America. And our program contacts are listed in the catalog of programs and on our website, rd.usda.gov. That catalog of programs is a terrific guide. I suggest you download it, put it on your desktop, and have it ready. It's a good tool for when you're not sure where to start. Today, we have with us representatives from each of our agencies, and they're going to share with you many of the opportunities we have for RD financing. First up, from our Rural Housing Service is Jamal Habibi. Jamal is the Chief of Staff for our Rural Housing Service. Prior to his appointment, Jamal was a Senior Associate at the Opportunity Finance Network. He also served as Outreach Director at the Department of Treasury and as a Special Assistant at USDA. I'll turn it over to you, Jamal.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jackie. It's wonderful to be back at USDA. I was a special assistant from 2013 to 2016 doing Foreign Ag and Farm Service Agency. So back on the other side of the building now doing rural development, and such a critical time now as we're still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and really thankful to my partners on the call for all of the work they've done during the pandemic as well. I'm happy to be part of this presentation to work with Ready Communities and share information about the Rural Housing Service, or RHS. RHS helps rural communities and individuals by providing loans and grants for housing and essential community facilities. We offer loans, grants, loan guarantees for single and multifamily housing, child care centers, fire and police stations, hospitals, libraries, nursing homes, first responder vehicles, and housing for farm laborers. We also provide technical assistance loans and grants in partnership with nonprofit organizations, Indian tribes, state and federal government agencies, and local communities. There are hot links throughout this presentation to help direct you to more information on the programs that most interest you. So I'll cover our single family portfolio, our multifamily housing portfolio, and our community facilities portfolio during this presentation. And please do visit our website for additional information. So first up, we have our single family housing programs. So single family housing program for both individuals, nonprofits, banks, governments, and other entities. The programs include our direct home loan program, our home loan guarantee program, our repair loans and grants program, our housing preservation grants, our mutual self-help housing technical assistance grants, and our rural housing site loans. First, let's go over opportunities for individual applicants. So this is a heavy deck with a lot of information, but direct loans or loan guarantees help low and moderate income rural Americans buy safe and affordable housing in rural areas. Funds may be used to buy or refinance an existing home, build a new home, or buy and prepare a lot for new construction. Individuals have two choices, either our direct single family loan or our single family loan guarantee. Both types of loans may be used, as mentioned, to buy an existing home, build a new home, or prepare for new construction. And we offer qualified applicants 0% down and 100% financing. This is a fantastic program and is highly subscribed by folks in communities of less than 20,000, which is the eligibility area for participants. So please share this information with anyone interested. And the amount of assistance is determined by the adjusted family income and other factors as well. So depending on geography and income levels, and our websites have that detailed information on how you can apply, and information on if you or someone you know qualify. Moving on to our single family repair program. Our repair loans and grants program help rural residents repair, improve, and modernize their homes. Grants of up to $7,500 for health and safety repairs are available for seniors ages 62 and over who cannot afford a loan. Yes, these are grants. Please spread the word in your community. USDA also partners with nonprofit organizations that offer additional assistance to homeowners to improve the condition of their home. I encourage you to contact your local RD office for additional information. There are other programs for applicants other than individuals, such as nonprofits and government agencies and tribes, as mentioned before, and those include our Housing Preservation Grant for the repair or rehabilitation of housing owned or occupied by low and very low income rural citizens. We have our Mutual Self-Help Housing Technical Assistance Grant, which provides grants to qualified organizations to help them carry out local self-help housing construction process, and our rural housing site loans that provide two types of loans to purchase and develop housing sites for low and moderate income families. One is used to acquire and develop sites only for housing to be constructed by the self-help method, and the other is where loans are made to acquire and develop sites for low and moderate income families. Now I'll move on to our multifamily housing programs. We provide a variety of affordable multifamily housing rental assistance in rural areas. We also extend our reach by guaranteeing loans for affordable rental housing designed for low and moderate income residents in rural areas and towns. Some of these highlights include our farm labor direct loans and grants programs that provides financing to develop housing for our farm laborers, our housing preservation and revitalization demonstration loans and grants, which restructures loans for existing rural rental housing and off-farm labor housing projects to help improve and preserve the availability of safe and affordable rental housing for rural residents. We also have our multifamily housing direct and guaranteed loans, which provides competitive financing for affordable multifamily rental housing for low-income, elderly, or disabled individuals and families in rural areas. Our guaranteed program specifically works with qualified private sector lenders to provide financing to qualified borrowers to increase the supply of affordable rental housing for low and moderate income individuals in rural areas. And our multifamily housing rental assistance program, which provides payments to owners of USDA financed rural rental housing or farm labor housing projects on behalf of low income tenants who are unable to pay their full rent. A key aspect of this year was in the American Rescue Plan Act, Congress provided us with an additional $100 million in rental assistance, which we were able to target to about 30,000 rent overburdened tenants. So we were able to support those individuals, and as you all have been following, the eviction moratorium was critically needed to support those who have been paying above 30% of their income in rent, which is how we qualify or quantify those who are rent overburdened. So now I will move on to our community facilities introduction or slide. This is another key component of Rural Housing Service. Our community facilities or CF program offers loans, grants, and loan guarantees for essential community facilities. We give a priority to healthcare, education, and public safety projects. This is a fantastic program that reaches, as mentioned before, rural hospitals, community centers, childcare facilities, fire and police stations. So for more information about our community facilities program, please contact your state USDA Rural Development Office. As you can see on this slide, we offer a variety of CF programs and options. Both our community facilities direct loan and grant program and the loan guaranteed program provide funding to develop essential community facilities in rural areas. An essential community facility is defined as a facility that provides an essential service to the local community for the orderly development of the community in primarily a rural area and does not include private, commercial, or business undertakings. We also have CF technical assistance and training grants, economic impact initiative grants, rural community development initiative grants, tribal college initiative grants, and our new one, the emergency rural healthcare grants, where Congress provided us with $500 million in the American Rescue Plan Act to help support rural healthcare. RD is your partners for community facilities in rural areas. Now let's talk about this new emergency rural healthcare grant program. So this is a new pilot program. USDA is providing $500 million in grant funding for eligible applicants and eligible facilities to help broaden access to COVID-19 testing and vaccines, healthcare services, telehealth services, food assistance through food banks and food distribution facilities. And the goal behind this is to support both short-term and long-term growth in terms of rural healthcare. USDA will make this $500 million in grant funding available to be distributed between two tracks. Track one are recovery grants, which provide immediate relief to address the economic conditions arising from COVID-19 emergencies. So grant funds must be used in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic and to support immediate healthcare needs. So a key aspect of this would be funds might be used to cover costs incurred during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so that's kind of the immediate and kind of short-term coverage that these grants would provide. And grants range from $25,000 to $1 million for this track one. Looking at track two, our impact grants advance ideas and solutions to solve regional rural healthcare problems to support the long-term sustainability of rural healthcare. Long-term sustainability is defined as improved rural healthcare outcomes, improved access to quality healthcare, and creating and maintaining sustainable economic development for small communities. Grant funds must be used in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic, and these grants range from $5 to $10 million. These impact grants, a key focus for us in developing this program and working with Congress on this track too was looking at healthcare related or problems that rural healthcare centers and rural healthcare hospitals have faced over the past 5 or 10 years, and potentially using this funding to turn around perhaps an area such as rural obstetrics to improve that for the long term. So this program really gets to identifying and supporting the short-term costs of COVID in terms of expenses for the recovery grants, but also looking at our rural healthcare system generally and see how we can find and utilize this funding to support rural healthcare in the long term as well. Here are the main links in our next slide for rural housing service programs and some contact information as well for these hot links. Looking forward to taking some of your questions. I've seen some questions already that have been submitted that are wonderful, and many of you are very familiar with our programs already. But up next, I'd like to turn it over to our colleagues in the Rural Utilities Service. Our first presenter for RUS is Daryl Lipscomb. Daryl is a community program specialist for Rural Utilities Service, or RUS, who works in our water and environmental programs. Over to you, Daryl.
Daryl, you're muted.
I'm sorry. There we go. Thank you, Jamal. It's wonderful to be here today. Let me share a brief overview of the Rural Utilities Service. USDA's Rural Utilities Service administers programs that provide much needed infrastructure or infrastructure improvements to rural communities. These include water and wastewater facilities, electric power, and telecommunications services. RUS helps rural utilities expand, keep their infrastructure and technology up to date, and establish new vital services such as distance learning and telemedicine. Let's start with the water and environmental programs, or the WEP program. WEP provides loans, grants, and loan guarantees for drinking water, sanitary sewer, solid waste, and storm drainage facilities in rural areas and cities and towns of 50,000 population or less. Public bodies, nonprofit organizations, and recognized Indian tribes may qualify for assistance. WEP also makes grants to nonprofit organizations to provide technical assistance and training to help rural communities with their water, wastewater, and solid waste problems. As you can see, we have many opportunities for your communities. This slide contains hot links to explore more on your downloaded slide deck. I will cover some highlights and look forward to your questions later in the Ask the Panel portion of today's event. Some programs are designed for pre-development, emergencies, improvements, and construction. We work with communities through our network of community program specialists providing supervisory credit assistance to best meet your needs. Water and wastewater projects improve infrastructure, support public health and safety, and promote economic development. The Special Evaluation Assistance for Rural Communities, or SEARCH grant program, can help small communities with limited income and population areas to get a project started to determine the best alternatives for providing needed pre-development feasibility studies, design and engineering assistance, and technical assistance for funding applications for construction. All eligible applicants under the WEP direct loan and grant programs must serve rural areas, cities, towns, and unincorporated areas that have a population of 10,000 or less inhabitants. The WEP loan and grant must finance only portion of the facilities serving the rural areas. To clarify this, the agency may finance the percentage of the water storage tank serving the rural area only. We also have a guaranteed loan program that has a population limit of 50,000, which allows the agency to guarantee commercially available loans in larger communities. Important to note that the related costs, or soft costs, are only eligible when the construction, repair, modification, expansion, and improvements to the system have been met, and as it relates to those improvements only. The guaranteed program, however, does allow equipment-only loans and more opportunity for refinancing options, with more options for construction design without the requirements for modest in size, design, and cost like the direct program, as this is a commercial loan without grant. The Emergency Community Water Assistance Grants, or ECWAG as we call them, are available to help communities with emergency situations with their water system in times of need, with a simplified application process that focuses on the need for financing when the community lacks the cash on hand to take care of the emergency repairs or replacement to the water facility on their own. ECWAG grants are limited to $150,000 on the distribution side of the facility, while the water source side of the facility may qualify for up to $1 million in grant funding in an emergency situation. We hope you will contact us if you have water and environmental program needs. Please use our link here to contact your local state processing office. I appreciate your attention and hope the presentation is beneficial to you in meeting your needs. Now I will turn this portion of our RUS Rural Utility Service presentation over to Chris Collins, a General Field Representative. As a General Field Representative, Chris Collins assists telecom, electric, and private companies, as well as local governments with USDA's Rural Utility Service programs, supporting broadband expansion, distance learning, and telemedicine. Chris?
Thank you, Daryl. It is also great to be here. I've had the pleasure of working with many of you in the audience on telecommunications planning meetings. I look forward to our continued partnership and creating some more today. I will begin by touching a little bit on the electric programs, and then we're going to look at a deeper dive into the telecommunications. So the electric program was the first program created under the Rural Electrification Act of 1936, beginning what we now know as Rural Utility Service. The electric program provides capital and leadership to maintain, expand, upgrade, and modernize America's vast rural electric infrastructure. The loans and loan guarantees finance the construction or improvement of electric distribution, transmission, and generation facilities in rural areas. The electric program also provides funding to support demand side management, energy efficiency, and conservation programs and on and off grid renewable energy systems. Now, the telecommunications program improves the quality of life in rural America by providing capital for the deployment of rural telecommunications infrastructure. USDA Rural Development is committed to ensuring that rural areas have access to affordable, reliable, advanced telecommunications services comparable to those available throughout the rest of the United States. With this access, rural America will see improved education opportunities, healthcare, safety, and security, and ultimately higher employment. A little deeper into the programs, we're going to look at these programs include the 5 listed here. Each program has independent application periods and application requirements. So interested applicants can visit each program's website to review previous year awards and information for preparation of any upcoming funding opportunities. All programs listed can fund broadband networks, but the Distance Learning and Telemedicine Grant Program, its primary purpose is to provide equipment to connect rural students and patients to teachers and physicians who can be located in urban areas. So after reviewing the websites or the programs you may be interested in, let's get started on what we can do about this. So all telecommunications programs require electronic applications. So if you don't have a SAM.gov registration or eAuth IDs, I encourage you to get started now with that, because some of these may take a long time. Begin engaging the community and identify areas of broadband need. We highly recommend engaging professional consultants familiar with RUS requirements and processes. Register for email updates for announcements and application period notifications to stay informed. Above all, don't hesitate to reach out to your local GFR. They are the subject matter experts, and they can help guide you through the process and answer any questions that you may have. So regarding GFRs, so both electric and telecommunication programs have designated GFRs for each state. Please do reach out to us for any questions, and I hope I will get some questions during the Ask the Panel portion of today's event. So I would, thank you for your time and allow me to be here. At this time, we'll now move on to learn more about another USDA RD agency, the Rural Business Cooperative Service. So this will be Jeff Hudson. He is a business loan and grant analyst in USDA Rural Business Cooperative Services Public-Private Partnership branch. Prior to that role, he served as the Business Programs Director for USDA Rural Development in Wisconsin. Jeff has provided over 16 years of service to the rural development and to support rural America. Jeff, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here. Probably one of the most important information that you're going to get today on the Rural Business Cooperative Services programs is my contact information. Please contact me with any questions on business programs. We're going to go through a lot of information in a short amount of time, but my contact information is included in here, and I can respond to requests well after the training's over. USDA's Rural Business Cooperative Service, or what we call RBCS, offers programs to help businesses grow, as well as job training for people living in rural areas. Our programs help provide the capital, training, education, and entrepreneurial skills that can help those living in rural areas start and grow businesses or find jobs in agricultural markets and in the bio-based economy. In a nutshell, RBCS helps strengthen communities and create jobs by building competitive businesses. We have 3 focus areas: business programs, energy programs, and cooperative services. Let's start with business programs. They provide financial backing and technical assistance to stimulate business creation and growth. The programs work through partnerships with public and private community-based organizations and financial institutions to provide financial assistance, business development, and technical assistance to rural businesses. These programs help to provide capital, equipment, space, job training, and entrepreneurial skills that can help start and/or grow a business. Business programs also support the creation and preservation of quality jobs in rural America. This slide lists some of the more popular programs, and these are all hot linked. Some of the programs offered through RBCS. RBCS has over 20 programs to assist businesses, individuals, and communities with job and business creation and business expansion. We'll go through some of the programs in the following slides, and I will be available along with the rest of the panelists during the question and answer segment to field any specific questions. This program, the BNI program, offers loan guarantees to lenders for their loans to rural businesses. Business loans are for-profit businesses, nonprofits, and cooperatives. Federally recognized Indian tribes, public bodies, and individuals. In my 15 years of working in state operations, this was our flagship program and has provided billions of dollars of financing in rural America. This program bolsters the existing private credit structure through the guaranteeing of loans for rural businesses, allowing private lenders to extend more credit than they would have been typically able to. A business and industry loan can also be used to acquire a business when the loan will keep the business from closing and/or save or create jobs. This is a great program. Please visit the hot link on your slide deck to learn more. Our energy programs offer funding to complete energy audits, provide renewable energy development assistance, make energy efficiency improvements, and install renewable energy systems. We have programs that help convert older heating sources to cleaner technologies, produce advanced biofuels, install solar panels, build biorefineries, and much more. USDA is at the forefront of renewable energy financing with options including grants, guaranteed loans, and payments. One of our energy programs that I want to highlight is the Rural Energy for America program, or the REAP program as we call it. It helps finance the cost of renewable energy systems and energy efficiency improvements for rural small businesses using the SBA definition for a rural small business and agricultural producers. REAP loans can also be used to establish other renewable systems, including geothermal or hydropower or other processes converting biomass to energy. 2021 will be a record year for REAP guaranteed loans of approximately $500 million, which have been used for all types of renewable energy projects and energy efficiency projects. USDA helps rural residents form new cooperatives and improve the operations of existing ones. USDA's Cooperative Services is the nation's major source for information about cooperatives. Our library of more than 150 co-op publications, many of which are available in hard copy as well as online, range from basic co-op primers to in-depth reports on technical topics to reports that focus on co-op economic theory. Any questions on cooperative services or any other programs may be directed to me, and I will loop in cooperative services staff. The primary contact for rural business cooperative service programs is the business program director located in each of the 47 state offices. The link in this slide will provide you contact information for the state office that can direct any RBCS inquiries to the appropriate rural development state office personnel staff. The vast majority of business programs are originated and serviced by the state office staff. Any questions can also be sent to me, as I mentioned before, and I will assist you with providing the appropriate contact for your request. Christine, back to you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And we're really excited now and thank once again all of our presenters. Just really appreciate you all being here and the wonderful information that you were sharing. Now, next is our kind of panel section where all the presenters are still here for you, and we know that we have some questions coming in. So keep them coming. As you note on your interface, you're able to either raise your hand by hitting the hand icon, and that'll show you and put you in queue, and Jamie will call on you, and or there is the question and comment panel that you can type into, and we've got some great ones in, and then you can type into and we can read those and the panel can answer them. So I do see a hand raised. So maybe we start there, Jamie, and then we'll go to the question and comment section as well. Now, one thing that we're really excited also is that we have two of the Innovation Center specialists also on the line, and they are going to be handling those questions and reading those comments and really supporting us today. They've also been integral to this presentation. So a big thanks to Jenna Savage and Caroline Evans. I'll turn it on over to you, but we will first, Jamie, let's start with the hand raised. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Yeah, we do have a hand raised. Yvonne Peterson, I have unmuted you and you are, you are able to unmute on your end and speak aloud. Yvonne Peterson?
Hi, good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yay.
Oh, yes. I have a question about the READY program. I'm in the Virgin Islands. We participated in the READY program, but during that time, well, of course, we had the hurricanes, and then right after that, backed up with the pandemic, which is still continuing. And so because of that, we appreciated what Purdue and Kentucky did with us, but I think we needed some more time because of the challenges we're having. Are there someone allowed to go and apply again for the READY program? Like a follow-up on the READY program?
Jackie?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for your question. So you're asking whether or not you can apply for additional READY grants?
Yeah, because the two one time was right after the hurricane, and then you had a pandemic, and then we had them come on just this July, but that was such a space between both times, and again, because of the being category 5 in the VI, we really didn't have a lot of people willing to travel. As you know, we're on different islands. So we're just asking whether or not that's something that we can kind of reapply for to kind of get us back on track.
Yeah, the READY grants were only funded that 1 year. The current kind of planning grant that's in play right now is our rural placemaking grants. And we're happy to connect you with someone to talk to you about that program and some others that might be useful to you.
Okay. I have one more question, if you don't mind. As you know, we continue to struggle with power outages, and can a nonprofit and for-profit kind of partner to maybe not develop, but build or place solar water heaters on private homes, because that's a challenge that we have here with the high cost of electricity and the continuing fluctuation. That would be very helpful. We tried it a couple of years ago, but it was a challenge working with the government. So wondering whether or not can something like that be done with a public, like a nonprofit or the private sector?
I just have one clarification question for you. Are you asking solar water heaters for individual homes or
yes.
Solar? Okay, so maybe Jamal, that might be a housing piece. Daryl, I don't think it falls into the WEP program then for individuals, right?
No, it would not fall under the water environmental program because our program is designed for public water and sewer facilities.
Right. Jamal, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'd recommend checking out our Section 504 grant and loan program. That's on our Rural Housing Service webpage. Repairs that are eligible for these programs have to do with just typical home repairs, insulation, energy efficiency improvements, water heaters. But again, our some of the specifics vary depending on geography and a few other issues. So please check out Section 504 repair program under the Rural Housing Service, and that'll give more details on eligibility.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And just so you know, hey, welcome and cheers to the Virgin Islands. If I remember right, we met very early on, and just really thank you for hanging in there. And we know that you did have a partner with Purdue. I think that the other thing, once you get the handouts and especially the recording, any further questions, those links are going to be live for you. I have also put in, Yvonne, the link to the website that Jamal referenced. And so it's in the chat for you as well. All right, I think a quick hand check. I think we're good there. Now we'll go over to our comments and questions that came in written. Jenna or Caroline?
Yes, thank you, Christine. Gosh, it really is a pleasure to be here today and to support you. I would like to remind you, like Christine mentioned, that we do have a lot of hot links in the attachment that you can download now. And those were the hot links that were mentioned by all of our presenters today. So I encourage you to take just a moment and download that if you haven't already. Also, the program is being recorded, and you will get a copy of the handouts as well as a copy of the recording of this program. So the fun part, listening to the panelists and learning so much more. Let's get right to the first written question. Panelists, the first question is, does USDA Rural Development have any specific loan or grant programs that can support in planning, such as feasibility studies or strategic planning for a project? Panelists, who would like to start?
Christine, this is Daryl. The Water and Environmental Programs does have a search grant program. It is designed for preliminary engineering reports, and also a lot of times it's used for the preparation of the environmental to help communities determine the best alternatives for water facilities and wastewater facilities. And those are used quite extensively particularly for the low income and more rural communities, the smallest communities.
Rural Business Cooperative Services has the Rural Business Development Grant that can be used for feasibility studies for small and emerging businesses of less than 50 employees and less than $1 million a year revenue, and also for some planning, regional planning, again, with small or micro enterprise impacts.
And for Rural Housing Service, each of our portfolios, single family, multifamily, and community facilities have technical assistance grants. Specifically in terms of studies, we're for our multifamily housing unit this fall and into next year, we're going to be putting out a notice of funding availability in terms of research-based grants in terms of helping us with studies of preservation of our multifamily housing portfolio. But each of our program areas, community facilities, multifamily, and single family, have technical assistance grants that you can look to in the hot links to apply for.
And just one more to add. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris, did you have
Go ahead, Jackie. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
We have our RPIC, our Rural Placemaking Innovation Challenge cooperative agreements that we've done the last couple of years. And this is for placemaking planning. So for communities who are looking to create a placemaking plan, we do it once a year. This year we had about $3 million, and the grants are usually up to about $250,000. Chris, did you have something you wanted to add? Does Red Leg allow for that? For feasibility?
No, the Red Grant is only for direct loan. It's a loan. When the Red Grant is a grant to the eligible community facility, but then the funds revolve and are available as loan funds only.
But for Red Leg, they don't.
Right. Right.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, I was just going to add that under electric and telecom, we don't have any feasibility or technical assistance specific grants, but all of our most of our programs do allow for pre-application reimbursements if you are awarded. So, you know, try to assist out a little bit that way, because we do understand there's a lot of preliminary work, financial engineering that needs to be done, and we will allow that reimbursement if it is awarded.
Okay, wonderful. Great responses, and a reminder to everyone, from the hot links, you'll see some of our resource guides. That does include an e-connectivity guide, rural workforce guide, and also recreation guide, as well as others, a tribal guide. And in that, when you look on there, there's a matrix of programs and all of those resource tools for you, and they will note whether or not they have planning mechanisms in there. So wonderful. Thank you, panelists. Okay, what questions are you seeing, Caroline?
Okay, hello, everyone. Here's our next question. What programs do you have available at Rural Development that can assist rural businesses for our panelists?
Within RBCS, we have, again, mentioned before, the Rural Business Development Grant that can be provided to intermediaries, provide revolving loan funds for small micro enterprise. We also have the Business and Industry Guaranteed Loan Program that can be used to stimulate rural businesses. And as Jackie mentioned before, through the Rural Electric Co-ops, there is the Rural Economic Development Loan and Grant Program.
And then from the RHS perspective, you know, you necessarily wouldn't think of RHS in terms of the business aspect of things, but we have our Community Facilities Program, which provides grants and loans to fund essential community facilities. And of course, if those facilities utilize that funding, it can definitely attract more capital generally to the property, allow folks to hire more workers potentially. So it can create that economic benefit. Also, what I just discussed in terms of the emergency rural healthcare grants, our track 2 on how we're trying to utilize those funds to really build back and develop rural healthcare centers and hospitals that have struggled over the years. We think funds in that capacity can definitely help in terms of an economic benefit to the local rural town and to individuals who work at those facilities. Yeah.
I was just going to add, so under the Rural Utility Service Telecommunications Program, rural businesses actually could utilize the Distance Learning Telemedicine Grant from a perspective of establishing either a learning access point or creating some type of education program to sustain workers or to help educate or certify workers for further business advancements, or even looking at getting into smart agriculture precision of establishing a remote learning site with an OEM for purposes of advanced training towards items like that. So even though it is a distance learning grant, it's just for providing education connection. It's not necessarily limited just to education facilities. So.
Thank you so much. And now back to you, Jenna.
Can I interject, ladies? It looks like we do have a hand up. We have a hand up from Brandy Flint. I have unmuted you, and you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Brandy Flint. Brandy, are you still around? I have unmuted you. You have to, on your end, select the unmute button so that you can ask your question aloud. We may have to revisit Brandy's question. We'll try again in a little bit. Thanks for letting me interrupt.
Okay, great. No, continue to do that. We definitely want to continue with the mix of live and written questions. We want to hear everybody's questions and get to as many as we can. Just a reminder, for any questions that aren't answered today, we certainly will send a written response to those. So we'll do our best to get as many as we can. The next question, panelists, are you ready? here we go. I'll do my best in getting this communicated here, and then we can always call on the asker if necessary, okay? Our rural property owners have their own wells for drinking water. Many are affected by high nitrates and other contaminants due to ag land uses. Do you have programs for replacement wells or treatment systems? Panelists?
Well, there's really two ways that they could be helped. Jamal, of course, in the housing program for individual loans, mentioned the 504, Section 504 program. But for the water and environmental program, I mean, that's a common issue. Nitrates getting in water sources, groundwater. There's surface water issues, but we can build public water facilities. Those can be construction of new facilities as well as improvements to an existing facility or replacement of an older existing facility. Our loan and grant program, direct loan and grant program, as well as the guaranteed program, either one can be used to serve those needs depending on what the community can afford. Those systems will include the water source treatment facility as well as a distribution facility, as well as the water storage. Those are the ways that those communities could be helped.
Hey, Daryl, this is Jackie. I just wanted to make sure your decentralized water systems, the old household water well systems grant, it can also be used for individual wells for this type of treatment. If they,
yes.
Right?
Yes, it could be.
So that's a grant program, but it's a revolving program to us. There are third parties who run those loan programs out in the communities, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think RCAC is one of the one of the regions under RCAP. They have a revolving loan fund for that purpose. They're low interest loans, right? To drill wells, create those.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jackie. I'm not as familiar with that program, but I think, is that the revolving loan program that some of that money on may be funneled through the housing single family housing program?
This is separate. This is our household water well grant program, now called decentralized something. I'm sorry. I'll get it on the list for us. But when I was running water, I knew it as household water well program. But it is available. It's a place where folks can go to third party. We have a couple of revolving funds who provide these loans. They're usually very low interest, like 1% loans. For up to like 15 years, I think. And we'll put that link in the chat for the attendees today, so you can see those. But you wouldn't come directly to us. You would go to a third party, one of the revolving loan funds, and they could work with you on that. But I do know that because we had an issue in Wisconsin number of years back with this very issue, and we determined it was an eligible purpose to retrofit those well facilities with some like a treatment piece. Clearly, I'm not an engineer. But you know, there's
Thank you, panelists. There's some questions rolling in, which is terrific. Just a note that, as you can see, not just one area or agency within rural development can support you with your needs. So meeting with your state office, your area office in rural development to talk about funding strategy for your needs is really your best bet. And all that contact information is in all the handouts we're providing. Panelists, if you're done with that question, I'm going to move on to Caroline for the next question. Are you good for us to roll forward?
Perfect. Okay, the next question is, do you have any rural development loan or grant programs for our rural towns to attract in more industries? Panelists?
This is
Would you be
so look at from a perspective of a municipality or local government, you know, there has been an increase where broadband availability or the lack of has, you know, kind of hurt the progression of business development within the community. And so local communities, local governments are eligible applicants under this program. So they could come to RUS for a broadband grant or loan grant or loan to build a broadband network. Now, we don't require municipalities to be the provider of the broadband service. They certainly could build the network, what we call an open network, and then they could solicit providers who are interested in providing that service to that business, homeowners, and so forth within the community to help build that business, you know, prospect.
Perfect. Okay, thank you, panelists, and thank you. And now back to you, Jenna.
Okay,
Excuse me
wonderful.
again. Let's try reaching out to Brandy Flint again. Brandy, are you around and able to unmute and ask your question?
Sorry, you answered my question and I just couldn't unmute earlier.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, wonderful. We're glad we answered that question, Brandy, and we'll go on to the next question for the panelists. Okay, here we go. We are seeking grant information to build a community center that includes not-for-profits, small child care center, a small child care center, and a small theater, etc. What programs do you offer to support this? Panelists, who would like to start?
I can go ahead and start with that one. You know, as mentioned during my presentation, we have our community facilities program, grants and loans. We also have some technical assistance grants as well linked to community facilities, but highly recommend you explore our community facilities webpage. I believe that's hot linked in the presentation. You can also just Google USDA community facilities and it has program information in terms of eligibility, and more information if your entity would qualify for a community facilities loan and grant. So that would be your best bet. Additionally, there's information on our website about your rural development state office, your local office. So if you're interested in contacting them, they'll have a little bit more information and that level of expertise at working in the location to where you would have the facility.
The Rural Business Development Grant, as been mentioned before, could be a potential grant source from the planning side. Also, there could be revolving loan fund money that could be used there to help with the construction, and again, would be eligible under our Business and Industry Guaranteed Loan Program if it did not meet the Community Facilities Direct Loan Program or Guaranteed Loan Program.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. All right, back to you, Caroline, for the next question.
Great. Okay, the next question we have is, what type of grants do you have at RD that can be accessed by individuals? Panelists?
In rural business programs, we do have a value-added producer grant that can be accessed by individual ag producers, and it provides a cost share for working capital or planning and feasibility for producing value-added agricultural products. And the REAP program can also be, well, no, not by individuals. The REAP program by individual ag producers. If there's a tie to the ag, Rural Energy for America program grant can go to individual ag producers.
Perfect. Any other panelists?
In terms of rural housing service, as mentioned, we have multiple grant programs that can help rural communities. We've got our Section 504 home repair grant program. We've got different types of technical assistance grants across single family, multifamily, and community facilities. We've got our community facilities grant program as well. So highly recommend jumping on our website and looking at our different rural housing service program grants to see if you are eligible.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And now back to you, Jenna.
Okay, great. Now I'm very intrigued by this question. It's a great question, and this again is why we really recommend you meet up with your local rural development office and have a funding strategy meeting. Okay, panelists, are you ready? Do you have programs to support equipment for makers spaces that would be made available for use by community members and entrepreneurs? All right, handing it off to you panelists to answer.
Can you repeat for maker spaces? Is that what you said?
Yes, I'll repeat the question. Makers and maker spaces is for, and we can always have Nancy Turek also ask this question. She put her hand up if she likes to comment on it, but that would be for services of making product, okay? And we can have Nancy, if you wanted to chime in, feel free. The question again is, do you have programs to support equipment for makers spaces that would be made available for use by community members and entrepreneurs?
So just off the top of my head, it's a very specific question that I don't know that I've heard in my 16 years at Rural Development, but noodling it, I'm thinking if it is a community that is hosting the space and charging, it's possible, Jamal, maybe under CF, under our community facilities program, if the owner and operator is a local community. And then I'm not sure on the RBCF side whether RISE or something.
Under the in RBCS, again, if we're calling it working towards the incubator type of model, would be eligible again through the intermediary as a potential grant through the Rural Business Development Grant Program.
Okay.
Great, very good. And Nancy, if you wanted to put your hand up, if you wanted to make any further comments, and what we really do advise you to do is to look at the link for our cooperative services, and they certainly have some experience with this, and they have folks that have worked with other communities with maker spaces, and you can consult with them and see if maybe they have some examples to support you. All right, do we have any hands up at this time? And I do need to have a time check if we can continue with another question, because Caroline, I've got one. If you don't have one, I've got one queued up.
Yep, and I think, Jenna, this will have to be the last question in the interest of time. So I'll turn it to you, Jenna.
Okay, very good. So the final question that we have for you, and we'll have a couple more that we'll have to respond to and send to you afterwards. Let me go ahead and pull this up here. What programs are available to support healthcare needs for infrastructure, education, and/or training? Panelists.
So, oh, good, Chris.
Jackie, you can.
Because I'll list all the programs. So you start, and then I know, Daryl, you've got some, and I know, Jamal, you've got some.
So regarding healthcare or education, of course, going back to the distance learning telemedicine grant program. So that program can provide grant funding for the equipment, network needs to link rural healthcare clinics or organizations to more urban type specialties if needed, as well as with the with the continuing COVID pandemic that we're experiencing, we're seeing that program being utilized as well with healthcare organizations doing home type monitoring, trying to reduce, patient cross contaminations or anything like that, and also try to limit exposures at their local clinics. And so that grant does pay for equipment. It does pay for some broadband infrastructure if a location needs to be connected to a bigger broadband pipe. It can fund that, as well as we have seen some healthcare organizations take advantage of that by implementing equipment or creating a distance learning type room at their facilities and linking with local colleges or universities to provide training to their staff to open up opportunities for advancement within the healthcare organization. And also, it can, if presented the correct way, can provide funds to do other type of specially used equipment like digital x-rays, ultrasounds, and things of that nature. We just recently awarded a program in Missouri where they're doing virtual ultrasounds in rural areas to help fight off high-risk pregnancies.
And for Rural Housing Service, of course, we have our emergency rural health care grants where we received $500 million from Congress and the American Rescue Plan Act. Traditionally, we've provided financing to rural healthcare centers and rural hospitals as well. Infrastructure was mentioned on this, so I wanted to just briefly touch that although housing isn't a part of the infrastructure bill specifically, it has been included in Congress's most recent proposal for reconciliation. So for those of you who have been following the bill, many members of the House have proposed upwards of $5 billion for the Rural Housing Service specifically. And of course, if Congress approves that legislation, then we definitely will try to look to utilize that funding for potentially new housing stock preservation and other activities. So in terms of infrastructure, if Congress provides us with that funding, we're looking to help build, the much needed rural infrastructure and housing stock and facilities going forward.
Okay, wonderful. Any last comments, panelists, on that? Well, fantastic response. It's so very important to touch on infrastructure and, of course, all the new money with the emergency rural healthcare grants that came into our rural housing division. And also very interesting about the virtual ultrasounds that can be used. So many different ways that we can support healthcare for rural America with rural development. So it looks like we're done with this section of the program, and all questions that were unanswered during this segment, they will be replied to in written format later. So please be on the lookout via the email that you registered with. And thank you, and I'm handing it back over to you, Christine.
Thank you, Jenna, and thank you, Caroline and Jamie. One thing that we really want to leave you with, and hopefully that's the one thing that you did remember early on in this session, was really around the relationship and the contacts that are available to you. You may not know the projects or the parts in your implementation plan that you want to move forward on right now, but hopefully you know by the links that have been available or any contacts or any information that you received from this presentation that we're really here to help, and that rural development staff is available to you in the field. So please know that, please leave with that knowledge. And thank you. Thank you for all of your hard work. We know that you are the reason and the mission for our rural development agency. And so we're really here to support you. Another hats off to our cooperators. Thank you for this journey that we had together. We know that we sunset at the end of this month, but we know that we'll see you down the road, especially as we really prioritize and look towards those items and those priorities, whether that's through points or messaging and technical assistance and capacity building that can happen around them and down the road. I'm going to turn it over to Jackie for any final comments, but thank you again. And we'll end the session as soon as Jackie closes this out. Thank you again.
Hi all. One last thought. You know, again, Christine thanked you all for being part of the READY initiative. It's really important that you have done this planning work. It's never been a better time. Our interest rates remain low on a lot of our loan programs. There's unprecedented levels of grant, like you've talked about the emergency grants and other grants that are available. There are potentially other funds coming to us through other potential legislation. And we have, we're continuing to implement our programs and make sure that rural communities benefit, and giving some special emphasis in some areas on the priorities. So ample funds available, good terms, great time for you to extend your partnership with us and move to that next phase of your project. So we look forward to working with all of you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This concludes the event. Stay in touch.